Hi, everyone. My name is Lizzie Martinez. I have had the great privilege of working for the Palace Group for over 24 years, working with seniors, helping them navigate through the aging process. Today, we are starting something new. This is called Legacy Voices. It's an opportunity for us to honor, to preserve the legacy of our residents. And we have an amazing woman with us today. Her name is Roslyn Bennet. Woo!
Well, I don't know about that. That's pretty loud.
So, Roz is a trailblazer, much like Dr. Ruth was. She was a therapist for marriage and family and quickly knew that she had to get additional training as a sex therapist. Is that right, Roz?
That is correct.
Tell us about it.
Well,
Take us from the beginning.
After I finished my training, I decided I wanted to do marriage and family therapy. So I didn't know, and I knew I wanted to work with a psychiatrist. Fortunately, I knew most of the ones in town in Hollywood, Florida, where I practiced. And then I decided that when I was with my client, either it was a male or female, and the psychiatrist would take the opposite. If I had the woman, he would take the man. If he had the man, I would take the woman. And then we would compare notes and have group sessions with all four of us. But all of a sudden, the sex came in, and we didn't know how to deal with that. And because it was a marital problem, primarily in those days, there was erectile dysfunctions, there was non-orgasmic women, and we wanted to try to solve those problems within the marriage. So that's how I got into sex therapy, per se.
Wow. And I imagine that at those times, first of all, that was a very, and still is, a very unique profession, right? Something
Right.
that I'm sure was maybe a little taboo back then for a woman to be in a profession like that.
Well, when people are in pain or distraught or their marriage is falling apart, they're very motivated to find out what's causing the problem. So naturally, marriage is man and woman. So we had the exact situation to help people.
Tell me how you helped them.
Well, if someone has, for example, a man has an erectile dysfunction, there's a reason why that's happening. It doesn't just happening. Most of the time it's because he's very angry, and he certainly doesn't want to get an erect penis with his wife if he's that angry with her. So we have to discuss, we have to get into the wheres and wherefore are his feelings of anger. And that has a lot to do with sex therapy. Can you imagine? He's so angry
with his spouse that he can't,
perform. Exactly.
Thank you. I was looking for the right word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what it is, to perform, especially in that relationship. When there's so much anger, there's no reason. He doesn't want to. So that's a problem.
I see. And so these couples, they were coming to you, they were telling you their problems.
Right.
And, these are very strong conversations that you're having with these
But
people.
they're private. It's between us, the man, the woman, the psychiatrist, and myself. And as I said, when someone is in such pain and they want to preserve their marriage, they are listening. They are motivated to find out.
And how would you help them? What would you tell them to do?
Well, I would find out, first of all, as I gave you an example of a man who doesn't get hard erections, What is the reason for all this anger? And then there's a conversation, and then there's therapy to discover what his anger is and how his wife can help him dissolve some of that anger. And that's the way it occurs. And before I knew it, I was doing sex therapy, and I needed to go get some more training, which I did. And the psychiatrist many times didn't even know this. He didn't have sex therapy.
So you were the one with that training.
I was the one with that kind of training, and it was brand new. But as I said, people were so motivated when they are deep in problems.
Sure. They want to resolve it.
Yes, they do. They do.
And salvage their marriage, salvage their relationship.
So once the anger, for the example that I gave you, is dissolved, and it can be, one thing I want people to understand is that this is learned. To have good sexual relationships, it's learned.
Learned behavior.
Learned behavior. It can be learned. It can be.
So you can be good in bed if you want to be.
Absolutely. You can learn what's causing it not to be.
Okay.
Through therapy and through certain other things that I taught them to do.
And I imagine a lot of that comes with confidence, right? You have to be confident in yourself, and you have to be, is that part of it?
Well, I think that's with everything.
Right.
They came to me and the psychiatrist to solve the problem. So that's what we attempted to do. And this is pre-Viagra.
Before Viagra hit the shelves.
That's right. That's right. None of the other drugs were discovered then.
So I imagine Viagra maybe shifted your industry, the sex therapy, right? Did it kind of change?
No, because it changed it.
I see.
Even if you had the problems, if you took Viagra, sometimes it would take over and the problem wouldn't be solved with the anger.
I see. So your work was to get to the bottom of it.
Right.
What was causing the anger?
Exactly.
To then treat it.
Right.
I
exactly.
See. Roz, talk to me about maybe one of the patients that stuck out for you. Something. What was?
Well, I had one patient who was a judge. And you'd think a very smart, good-looking young man, but he was a judge on the bench. And there was a girl that he was going with, and she was no good for him, truthfully. She was not.
Why was she no good for him?
Yeah, well, she was really motivated by gaining prestige for herself, money for herself, and so forth.
So she was in it for the power. She wanted
absolutely,
to. Okay.
Absolutely. And he could not see it. He just was very, very motivated and blind. It took him a very long time. But finally he did. He broke off with her and went on to better sources because she was no good for him. And as a therapist, you can't just say this girl is no good for you. You have to do it in a different way so his ego is not affected and so that she is not seen as a bad person, but just someone not for him.
I see.
That was one of the cases that I had. I just had a terrible time having him recognize what she was all about.
So you were working with him for a long time, would you say? You had to get him to...
I would say I had them over a year.
Over a year?
Over a year.
You were working with them?
Yeah, because she was pretty good at keeping him. She was very pretty and a very nice girl, but just... motivated by the wrong things, and this was not good for him.
You saw it. She was using him, and you saw it a mile away.
Right, and he didn't see it. Imagine, a judge on a bench had a very difficult time. That was one of the toughest cases I had.
Let me ask you, Roz, let's say that a couple would come to you, and they were having issues with intimacy.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean, intimacy?
Maybe they were having issues with their sex life, right?
Oh, okay.
Would you ever advise a couple to, try new things,
Oh, without a doubt.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Most of them didn't know how to make themselves very erotic. And I would certainly teach those kind of things and send them to the stores, to the toy stores.
Okay.
Oh,
You would send
yes.
them into the toy
And
stores.
they do definitely work. It elicited some of the feelings that they may have had.
Okay.
And this is another thing. Everything is okay. There's nothing that isn't okay for a couple to do in the privacy of their home, as long as it doesn't interfere with other things that are going on in their life. In other words, the toys or the things that I taught them to do, which I did teach them how to become more intimate and how to be really aroused.
You were teaching them these things.
Yes, I did. There are a
Right.
series of exercises and things using their hands, their mouth, their tongues, everything.
So tell me one that was like your fallback. Which one would you tell them to do?
Well, I always taught them all to start from the beginning, which is touching from head to toe.
So you would tell these couples, touch each other from
Right.
head to toe.
Right, in a certain way, and to elicit the feelings of sexuality, not just to play around, but to increase the eroticism. Now, again, this is when people don't have Viagra. This is when people are not aware of the anger. Sometimes it can bypass the anger, most of the times not. So then we'd have to go back to therapy for marriage, not just sex therapy.
Let me ask you. So let's say that you had a couple and one of them wanted to bring other people into the relationship. Would you advise them to do that?
I would never advise them to do something that both parties don't agree to. I'm sure that the ones that I saw
both parties have to agree on it. And
agree.
Then,
Absolutely. They have to agree on what I'm teaching them, too. If they don't agree, then we have to change it.
I see. The reason I ask is because I hear more and more of a term called polyamorous, which, it's these couples and they bring in other people into the relationship. And so that's why I was asking.
That's not sex therapy. That's not good for a marriage. These people that I saw were interested in preserving their marriage, interested in staying married.
Right. I love this.
So bringing other women or men into the relationship doesn't preserve the marriage.
Right. Roz, you're incredible. You are. You're incredible. I'm learning so much from you. You're just, I've known you.
Well, I believe in putting it right out there.
You always have. You're a straight shooter, and that's what I love about you.
I think that's important, because if you don't and something happens, then you haven't done your job.
Let me ask you this. You are fabulous. You're 91 years old. You are not slowing down. Let's talk about sex in the golden years.
Okay.
What do you think about it? Do you think as people get older, they should continue having sex?
Of course. Now, if they can have erections, and that's the primary thing. If a man can't get an erection, then he feels badly and he can't perform. But there are other ways of touching, kissing, stimulating, and they have to do those kind of things rather than just have intercourse.
I see. Okay, so you definitely say keep at it, even as you're getting older, just...
Oh, no question. You never have to give it up.
Okay.
Never.
Roz, I love you. You're so fun. Never give it up, folks. That's what Roz says.
Right, you don't have to. Forms of it.
I'm just trying to stick here with my questions because I know there's so much. Let me ask you this. What would you say to those who feel that intimacy and connection fades as they grow older?
They have to create it. They don't know how. they think, oh, I'm old, I can't have sex, my feelings aren't the same, which is nonsense. They can elicit it. Remember what I said, it's learned.
Learned.
If you've lost it, you can relearn it and relearn in a different way.
Okay. So
That
this
creates intimacy. It creates cohesion, not breaking up. That's what they came for, to find out.
Roz, let me ask you, and going back to in the start of your career, and, what did your family think of this?
Well, my kids were a little bit embarrassed. I remember having my books that I had, and I put them on the coffee table, and my children would look at those and say, Mother, don't put those there. I don't want to see those. So they were somewhat embarrassed. Another thing, I had some very interesting experiences. When I would go to a cocktail party, I thought I was in therapy. I would talk like I'm in therapy, and here I am at a cocktail party, and I caught myself.
So what do you mean you would talk like, so did people know that you were doing this and they would ask you
Yes,
questions like at a cocktail party?
Yeah.
They
or
would say, they'd
something.
come up to you and say, Roz, I'm having problems with my husband. What do you think
Well,
of
not like that, but it did happen. And I had to learn myself not to do this because I was used to putting it all out there. But you can't do that in a cocktail party.
It can get you into a little bit of trouble, I'm sure,
well,
right?
people are embarrassed.
Roz, let me ask you. You've spent so much of your life helping others with their relationships. How has your own personal experience shaped the understanding of love and intimacy for you?
Well, I learned it and I used it. And I wasn't embarrassed, or I didn't feel that I shouldn't do it. I remember when we first started a course, we had one course that was really to get you over any sense of embarrassment yourself. We went to a gym, and they had all kinds of words that involving sexuality, and they would raise the word, and you have to yell it. And you went on all night in the gym. In this big gym, the therapists who were taking these courses did that, so that when you say fuck, it doesn't upset you. When you say vagina, you're not uncomfortable with it. First, we had to become very comfortable with the language and what it meant.
Am I turning red? Am I the same color as my dress?
No, you're laughing, which is a definite sign of embarrassment at what I said.
Because it caught me off guard, and that's what I love about you. Roz, let's, oh my gosh, I just have so many questions. In your lifetime, you've seen the world change in many ways. What do you hope your legacy will be?
Well, I do think that sex is much more available and much more looked not down upon, but I mean, single people are engaging in sex today. And if that's what they want to do, and it doesn't interfere with their relationships with each other, if they're bringing in strangers, this doesn't do good for a marriage. I'm really more looking for, unless it's let's say a non-orgasmic woman. This is very difficult.
Is it? Why?
Well, because many times religion, it doesn't happen now as much, but many Catholic women who were taught that sex is bad or negative things about it, they would have problems. They couldn't allow themselves to let go. So that's one of the things that I had to dispel with non-orgasmic women, that it's okay to feel erotic. It's okay to feel good.
And again, it was learned.
Learned.
They have to learn.
That's right. It was learned.
Roz, I want you to take this opportunity to send a message to your children, to your grandchildren, what do you want them to know about you? And maybe they
They
don't
know everything about me.
a message, an advice. Give them what is the best advice on anything?
Well, do yourself a favor. Recognize that your capabilities and what you want is important, and not just what somebody else tells you, but try it. Try these things yourself in life. Experience them, including sexuality.
Try it. That's your advice. Try it. Try these things and be open to trying.
Yeah. Be open to all of the aspects of sexual life, no matter what they are.
Let me ask you this. What's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
The worst advice?
Maybe even sex related. Worst advice.
I don't know. I don't pay attention to that.
Okay.
If I think it's the worst advice, I just discard it and that's it.
And let me ask you, is there a secret to maintaining a joyful and loving relationship that you think everyone should know?
Yes. Keep your relationships clean. By that I mean get rid of anger. Anger is the most dangerous part of bad sex. It's very dangerous. So you have to discover what the anger and what the difficulties are and change it. You have to change it. It's learned.
I think it might have been you that you said to me one time, don't go to sleep angry with each other.
Not only don't go to sleep, don't be angry anytime. Try to resolve the angers that you have. And people are going to be, two people coming together have different ideas, different relationships, that the experiences that they've had. But you're dealing with a particular partner. And you have to find out all about that partner. What's good for him? What somebody else told you or what you read is not important. What's important is what's meaningful to him or her.
I love this. You know, I've learned a lot today. I've learned that as we get older, sex can continue to be enjoying. You can continue to enjoy sex in the golden years. We are, there's different forms of intimacy, which you said, just the touching, just
right.
And I've learned that, like you said, we have to be open to trying new things.
Right.
Even though
with your partner that you love, that you want to please. But, some people, for example, some people will say, let's say a man, the most important thing for him is that wife can cook and cook good. Another man might say, who cares about cooking? I care about this house. I want my house spotless. You must find out what is meaningful to him or her, not just generally.
So
that's the most important thing.
I think, and I was reading recently, there's something called Dr. Chapman's love languages. It sounds a lot like what you're saying. Learn the other person's love language, whatever it is, and know your own.
Right.
And then together, you can learn each other's love language and learn what you like and what they like. And
you have to be interested enough to find out what is meaningful to that particular person that you're with. As I started to tell you, some people want somebody who's beautiful, very important. Other men or women say, I don't care about that, but she sure better cook. Another one might say, well, she sure better look good in her clothes because that's what I care about. So that's the key.
I see. We have a question from our producer.
One of the most common questions I hear is, what if one partner wants more than the other? How do you overcome that obstacle?
What do you mean, more?
More sex?
More sex.
Should I repeat
like
the question?
Anything else, it's a compromise. If one wants 10 and another wants 2, 10 times a week, 2 times a week, you go in the middle. You have to compromise those things.
It's a friend. It's not me.
He's asking
That's
for a
what
friend.
I always hear. It's for a friend. That's okay. If you learn it, it doesn't hurt to know it.
What's your view on toys?
I think toys are wonderful, but some people don't need them. Other people need them badly.
But you were saying that you did advise some couples go to a
no
toy
question.
store and
No
and
question. I went with them many times.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
that's amazing.
Well, because they're embarrassed to walk in.
So you would go in with them and help them select
Right.
these toys.
Yeah,
and
this is for this is for that. This will increase eroticism. This won't. That
do you
kind
think
of,
any of your clients ever fell in love with you?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I don't think they are there to love each other.
Okay.
And that's
It's
what
easy to love you, Roz. That's why.
Well, I think you're embarrassed sometimes to ask these questions. But when you are in serious trouble, no question is too much to talk about.
Any more questions from our producer over there?
Yes, I've heard through the grapevine that you had some surrogate experience.
I had what?
The use of surrogates.
Oh, yes, I did.
Let's talk
I
about that.
did. I found a hooker
Let's talk about the hooker.
because the hooker was very free. And I don't mean free money because she's not. But they have experience. And not only that, but I taught them specifically what to do with a man who doesn't achieve orgasm. Or if it's
So let's go back. So you trained the hooker.
Yes, I did. How to touch, where to go on the body to bring about orgasms.
So she would work alongside with you.
Yes. She would work. I would teach her.
I see.
This is just in the beginning when
Right.
I needed a surrogate. I didn't know I was going to need this. And then all of a sudden, a woman appears and is not doing what she should do. So I have to find something for this man to get over his problem besides the anger.
Besides the anger. Wow. You're just fascinating. And this is why I say you are a trailblazer. Much like Dr. Ruth was a trailblazer, so are you.
That's true. That's true.
You really, and that's why this is so important, because many people know you at the Palace Senior Living Community, but they don't really know you and all the wonderful work that you did for so many years.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity to preserve your legacy.
Right.
So I want to ask you one last thing. What final message do you want to give to your children and grandchildren, if anything?
That good sex is learned. That good sex has to do with the emotions of the individuals when they're engaging in sex. If they're thinking about pleasing the other person, that's important. They're specifically trying to learn the things that are going to elicit the feelings of eroticism, the feelings of sex. That's what's important. And you don't need to have everything at once. You don't have to have erections all the time. When you're getting older, it's impossible. And you have to go with the flow. You have to find out again, what is meaningful to my particular mate? What is it that he really loves? What is it that she really wants but doesn't say? Don't forget, that language is not always spoken truthfully.
You're incredible, Roz. This was absolutely wonderful. I could not feel more honored and privileged to sit down with you and have this conversation. Until next time and until our next guest, we want to thank Roslyn Bennet for being here with us and for sharing her story, her life story, her journey. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing this with me.
My pleasure.
We
My
love you, Roz.
I only tip of the iceberg now. You know, anytime you want to talk about something privately with me, feel free, because I don't mind. It's passe now. I don't do any more work. I'm not looking for business. If I could help somebody with some of the questions that they have, and you'd be surprised how many questions that people think are silly or shouldn't do.
Don't be surprised if you're going to start getting a lot of knocks on your door at the palace at your apartment. Thank you again, Roz.
All right,
love
my
you.
pleasure.